This is a video on how thick-headed and ignorant I am, and how late and slow I am to learn really basic things about the world. I remember in undergraduate college, we read Plato's This and That Dialogue, and we rehearsed the details of the death of Socrates. And I heard the story about this truth seeker Socrates who didn't tell people truths, but asked them questions to challenge their existing confidences and beliefs, and was put to death because people got tired of that stuff. And I never really got the point until maybe a week ago. Decades late. Suddenly a week ago, this pattern in my own life of two things. Number one is there are so few places in life where you can tell the truth, even parts of the truth. And number two, that as a professor in most colleges, most courses, most of the time, you are forbidden to educate anyone. And they really don't like you doing anything except shoveling information. And let me give you a couple of really good examples of this stuff. Every culture and every focus has a cost, because every culture is a high performance, meaning it does some routines very, very well and effortlessly because of great rehearsal of them. And that means there are other routines it doesn't do at all. It's very bad at because it hasn't rehearsed them at all, and compared to the routines it has rehearsed, it's quite awful in those. And every focus is something that you devoted attention and effort to, and therefore 100 things other than that that you didn't devote attention and effort to and that you're awful at. So every high performance and every focus and every skill and every accomplishment has a cost. Now, we don't keep track of these costs. And we don't keep track of what we lack and can't do because of what we can do. Now, part of this is quite valid. We human beings are little tiny monkeys in a gigantic universe, and there are any of 20 different huge cosmic forces that can wipe all life off the earth at any second, and there's nothing we can do about any of them. So our actual situation is quite terrifying, and we would just be frozen with fear if we sat there in reality looking at our actual daily situation. Fortunately, we are projectors, and we project ourselves into imagined futures, and we live mostly in this world we share of mutually collaborating to help each other's projects. And basically, civilization is a gigantic mutual encouragement machine where one little monkey encourages the monkey left and right of him, and they encourage him, and he encourages them, and everybody encourages everybody because they're all terrified at heart. And so in that sense, the male tendency to not see reality or care about it, ignore it, and run out into some ridiculous imagined thing that doesn't exist at all is quite constitutive of civilization and maybe positive as a way of dealing with despair, by running into projected new imagined futures from the despair in the present. And the female despair-filled realism of accurately predicting futures because they fully assess the real risks and negatives of the present is quite useful and adaptive, because there are times where you'll be wiped out if you don't pay attention to what's going on in the present, even though it's not what you want, and it wipes out a lot of your dreams to deal with it for a while. And so there's a balance between the male and the female in terms of civilization and in terms of health and survival. And then there's Socrates things. Socrates, in a way, through truth, punctures female realism holes in male projects. He punctures pomposity balloons, and he punctures valid project balloons, both. And he's not thanked for it, he's hated for it. And in large corporations, you can palpably feel this in the corporate culture, where some pompous vice president is got a project that's 99.9% ego and building his own career and 1% content, and he's just impermeable to anybody who suggests that it would be nice to make it 2% content instead of 1% content and reduce some of the pomposity a little bit. And he fires people like that or otherwise negatively sanctions them. And you can get large organizations where everybody is 98% pomposity and 2% content, and that they collapse ultimately. But I'm not sure you can go around like Socrates puncturing their balloon and get anywhere, because it just makes them negatively sanction you, and they don't listen or learn from that. They just get angry. But it took me a long while, I think until last week, to learn that you can't walk around the world like Socrates following the truth. Now let's go to 1606 and the Société Philosophe in Paris. Some people say it's the first functioning academic society, though it's not the first formally chartered academic society with a publishing that it produced. And but there's some wonderful quotations by the French people who formed it, where they say that I hereby give up my loyalty as a citizen of France and a citizen of this city in France, a citizen of Paris, and I am now a citizen of truth. And my loyalty belongs to truth wherever it leads me. And this was the dream of scientists in the 1606. Cross-nation, cross-war, cross-male boundary, collaborative group of colleagues seeking truth and being more loyal to truth than to all these little greeds and needs of local principalities in and around it. And I was raised as a scientist from 6 years old until 20 or so years old, very, very sincerely. And I have not until just a few weeks ago fully acknowledged how deeply the image of being a science-type person in the world characterizes my weaknesses and my strengths. Now, when I was teaching at the University of Chicago, Garvin, I think the founder of Motorola, but at any rate at the time the chairman, stupidly and arrogantly and incompetently and evilly appointed his female body-chasing son to be chairman after him. And his son proceeded to wipe out 80% of the value of the company in the next 10 years or more, according to Forbes and the Wall Street Journal and outside sources. Now, I mentioned this in class, and the dean of the University of Chicago indirectly told me to tone down these comments about Daddy's son wrecking 80% of the value of Daddy's company. I mean, why? How can I toning it down mean anything if the Wall Street Journal is writing large 6-column articles on the particular stupidities by which Daddy's son is wrecking the company? But the dean needed to raise money from Motorola, and they had a lot of Motorola executives in their classes, and they didn't want to upset people. And so here I was in my Socrates moment, that telling the truth about the arrogant, deluded, ego, so many kiss asses around him that nobody corrects even that dumbest evil from him, Daddy's bombastic, pompous ego, ruining in his company as the cost of installing his son in charge of nothing. And it was written up in the press everywhere. That's where I got it from, because I didn't go to Motorola headquarters every day and ask people who's stupid around here. I got it from reading the Wall Street Journal like everybody else did. But I repeated it in my classes as an example of the ego costs of the psychodynamics of rising to leadership in big organizations. Because I had a course that dealt with the culture of big organizations and how dealing with that culture creates overweening and extremizations of career forces that then come back to haunt you and make you ineffective. That's a cost of operating in a big organization culture. And then I felt the Gavin phenomena was where like the British say, the first thing chairmen do when they realize they are the single top dog in the organization, they can hire and fire anybody except the board. And even the board, they can arrange to get rid of people by a good bit of politicking. When they come to that point, the first reward they give themselves is no longer listening to advice from other people, because they got to the top by being more social than everybody else around them. And they spent decades kissing other people's asses and being nice to stupid ideas by people around them and supporting initiatives that are hopeless by people around them. And now, by God, they're the top dog and they don't have to do any of that anymore. It's the first reward they give themselves. British research. The Americans never researched the ego dynamics of leadership in America because business is a religion in America and it's worshipped. And the professors in the Academy of Management are acolytes in the worship services. They are not scholars, for the most part. This is just America. As far as I know, it's not true in any other Anglo culture, and it's certainly not true in Nordic Europe or Germany. And it's a real delight to do business work in Germany, where they don't have business as a religion, or Oxford or Cambridge, where business is not a religion, or British TV, where they actually have a dozen great comedies about business dynamics. And Americans have so few comedies about it. Americans can't laugh at it because it's their religion. And then so you can't walk around life popping bubbles of balloons of pomposity and exaggeration and lies and all that theft by CEOs. And you can't do that hiding under the banner of truth and call that rational behavior as if truth is an unalloyed good. The little monkeys in